Hello, sir. Will you help us?
There are a lot of movies, like a whole lot. Over 100 years worth, with the past few decades allowing all sorts of new folks to step into the ring and try their hand at filmmaking. So it makes sense that some excellent horror movies might be passed over. Well, no more. Let's talk about the top 5 scariest horror movies nobody talks about. Disclaimer, I am aware that some people do talk about these movies. What, you don't get hyperbole? Alright. Coming in at number 5, we've got The Wax Mask. The first time I caught this, it was streaming on a Shudder channel, so I hopped in with zero context. Glad I did though, because this flick is gnarly. There's quite a bit of history to it too. In the 90s, legendary Italian director Dario Argento saw legendary Italian director Lucio Fulci's health was in decline. Argento worked with Fulci to develop a new project in which they would remake House of Wax. Unfortunately, Fulci died during the production, handing off the role of director to Sergio Stivoletti, a special effects artist. Stivoletti's influence is definitely felt throughout the film too, because these special effects are beyond nuts. Like, if you want to see some truly wild special effects, find yourself a copy of The Wax Mask and buckle up. It's the tale of a wax museum in a little Italian village and all the wonders it does for the community. And by wonders, I mean terrors. And by the community, I mean the bodies of assorted individuals about town. Did that make sense? I'm trying to say that there's a man kidnapping people after injecting them with some unknown substance via steampunk needle and then turning them into wax figures. Also, the man has a metal claw for an arm and tends to rip hearts right through chests, no problem. And you get to see all of it. Like, the gore in this movie is incredible. So much body horror. You get to see people hollowed out and turned into wax figures by some incredible dehydrating machine. Watch in terror as a man's skin melts away, revealing a Terminator-style metal skeleton. Every kill, every act of violence, every strange melty aside, it's all awesome. It's a crying shame more people haven't seen it. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, I implore you to go check it out immediately. Just don't expect any Oscar-winning performances, alright? Coming in at number 4, we've got Hellhouse LLC. Okay, so this one might actually get talked about a little bit, but still way less than it should. In my eyes, this is the kind of found footage movie that should be the yardstick by which other found footage flicks should be measured. It's not perfect, but it does get enough right within the found footage genre. It doesn't rub your nose in all the scares, and it doesn't rely on jump scares nearly as much as other movies tend to. And the fake documentary taking a look at the fake found footage angle is actually pretty effective, both in telling the story and in providing a creepy atmosphere. Hellhouse is the story of a failed haunted house organization. A group of friends head out to Rockland County outside of New York to convert an abandoned hotel into a Halloween attraction. What they don't know is that all sorts of sinister activity has occurred in the Abaddon Hotel over the years, and their leader, Alex, made a bit of a shady deal to acquire the real estate. All of this is slowly revealed over the course of the movie through footage they shoot on a camcorder, and also through narrations by paranormal enthusiasts looking back at the event. See, from the get-go we know that the haunted house is doomed to be a disaster, but all the gnarly little details are expanded on over time. Creepy bits of Abaddon lore pop up, and plenty of strange happenings keep the Hellhouse gang on their toes. It's restrained enough in its scares that it becomes genuinely chilling, as you notice little things are off in the background of different shots, and you feel the characters get more and more paranoid. Plus, the hotel is just a straight up creepy location. Every time you think you have the lay of the land, some new disorienting element pops up and confuses you all over again. And the best part of all, Hellhouse LLC is followed up by 2 batshit insane sequels. Essentially extended lore dumps. These movies drive me crazy in the best possible way. Every loose end from the first Hellhouse is explored in a depth previously unimaginable, and it's all done up with like a budget that was obviously much smaller than the first movie and some actors that may or may not be able to carry their weight. It's the best thing ever. And considering all the hardcore horror movie theorists out there, not enough folks are discussing the lore of the Abaddon Hotel. Marathon the trilogy ASAP and let me know what you think. Coming in at number 3, we've got Splinter. The wicked monster in this movie is enough to warrant lengthy conversations, but that just doesn't seem to happen. Sure, it doesn't have the star power or legendary appeal of a lot of other more famous infectious monster lockdown movies, but it's wicked cool in its own right. A vacationing couple gets carjacked by an escaped convict and his substance-reliant girlfriend, and the 4 of them end up at a dingy gas station. The station, unfortunately, has been recently attacked by a horrifying splinter-covered creature that assimilates any flesh it can find into its own horrid body. The 4 folks must then lock down the gas station and survive until help arrives. But help doesn't know how to deal with the dark and dangerous threat any more than they do. Yikes. Splinter is a tight and tense horror movie with very little fat to trim. It's pretty much one location with some stressed out strangers having to be as resourceful as possible against a supernatural threat. It's by no means a storytelling masterpiece, but every character gets a chance to grow and change a little, and the monster itself is again incredible. It constantly changes form, becoming more wholly terrifying with each iteration, and the way it moves is just spine-tingling. The director worked one-on-one with a trained gymnast to develop some of the most inhuman movements they could manage, and it works like a charm. This is a prime-time example of what some dedicated and passionate filmmakers can make on a relatively small budget. It's a shame the industry seems to be moving away from stuff like this. Coming in at number 2, we've got Jigoku. Admittedly, this movie is probably less discussed these days because it came out in 1960, and when it comes to old school Japanese horror movies, there are a few more popular choices for the masses to talk about. But Jigoku deserves its time in the sun, or out of the sun I guess, because it's all about being sent to the Buddhist approximation of hell to suffer for eternity. I'm not so sure I'm qualified to say anything authoritatively about this movie, as it is just such a rich text full of all sorts of classical themes and influences, and there's so much going on here, so it's hard to totally summarize. But I'll try. A student, Shiro, is attempting to marry his girlfriend, who is also the daughter of his professor. In a horrible turn of events, he and his sketchy friend Tamara end up in a hit-and-run situation. They choose run, driving Shiro mad with guilt. His guilt causes him to accidentally crash his car later on, killing his fiancée. Of course, this doesn't help soothe his guilt in any way. Soon, Shiro's mother falls ill and he heads out to her remote community to see her. There, he discovers an elaborate web of sinning, with each community member guilty of some sort of heinous act. These sins all come to a head at a lavish party where more or less everyone in town dies from either tainted food, poison, or at the hands of somebody else they have wronged. But death is not the end for these sinners. Jigoku awaits, and Jigoku is equal parts visually stunning and viscerally horrifying. The craftsmanship in the sets alone is worth an essay or two, and that's not even taking into account the camera work that so beautifully displays it. Jigoku is an incredible work of art that somehow has fallen off a lot of horror fans' radars. Coming in at number 1, we've got Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight. It is strange how little folks seem to talk about this brand new Netflix horror from Poland. Like, it just came out, is plenty scary, and manages to be subversive and traditional at the same time. Apparently I'm in the minority that thought it was fantastic, so today I'm going to try to make a case for it. Nobody Sleeps in the Wood Tonight is about a tech-cleansed camp for teens. Their parents send them out to the middle of nowhere to ditch their technology and make some new person-to-person connections. Should be fun, right? Well, it is, until a horrific mutated monster makes it out of its mother's cellar. Then it's a desperate fight for their lives. Plenty of twists here too. I won't go too in depth because half of the fun of this movie is getting caught off guard, and let's just say that there's more going on than you might think. It flips all sorts of tropes upside down without being too tongue-in-cheek or fourth wall breaky, which is actually a nice change of pace. Plus, there is some absolutely gnarly gore here. Top-notch gross out moments for sure. Maybe I'm not paying close enough attention, but it seems as though most folks have sort of passed this one by without a second thought. So let's talk about it. Well, by making this video, I have invalidated the title. Somebody has talked about these horror movies, unless you consider me a nobody, which, you know, I'd understand. So what did you think of the list? Have you discussed these flicks? What horror movies don't get enough attention? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's have a look at some of your more heroic ones from the top 5 horror movies that deserve another chance. Nicholas Kaufman says PPFA, the Pretentious People's Film Club. Association. For now, we'll call it a Freudian slip, although someday I'll be able to claim that it was an extremely well-planned joke. Candy Pate says Chainsaw Massacre is a true story. It was a guy with a chainsaw killing people in Texas. You can look it up, it's a true story. Hold on, hold the phone. You're telling me that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is based on a dude killing people with a chainsaw in Texas? Caitlin Lee Hagar says, I remember when I first saw The Ring, I couldn't stand it. A good friend of mine talked me into watching it a second time, and now it's one of my favorite movies. Second chances, baby! Sherio88 says, love the Dune reference at the end. Just finished reading Dune. I just got through Messiah, heading on to Children of Dune soon. And Michael Murphy says, love this channel. And we love you, Michael. And that's all the time we have for today. I'm gonna go play the Forbidden Harmonica solo. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.